Well, there's some news that's not very good for people who are fans of Donald Trump and Donald Trump himself. Steve Bannon, who is the chief strategist and possibly the mastermind behind the Trump run for White House, has struck a deal with special counsel Robert Mueller and his team investigating the alleged hack of Russia into the 2016 presidential election. That means he does have some kind of information that he's willing to trade for some kind of security against future prosecution. This means he will completely bypass being questioned in front of a grand jury. Now, this doesn't necessarily mean that Trump is guilty of something. It just means that Steve Bannon knows something, and he's willing to exchange that. He's willing to, as many people are probably going to interpret it, sell out Donald Trump in order to save himself. And frankly, I don't blame him. And no, I wouldn't want to go to jail for Donald Trump either. Now, the FBI reportedly showed up at his house in Washington, D.C. to serve him with a subpoena, only to find out that he already had a lawyer attached to the case. His legal representation is William Bruck, which he got only hours earlier, according to reports. Now, news of Mr. Bannon's cooperation with the Mueller probe comes just after the bombshell tell-all book, Fire and Fury, in which it is Steve Bannon who gave the information to the author of it. And this is after he was booted from the White House, most probably from the deep state, who saw him as a threat to their order, or at least someone who was pushing the president in a negative direction, which I would tend to agree. Now, this doesn't really mean that Trump has been found guilty of something. This doesn't mean that, this is guaranteed that Russia hacked the election. Personally, I am extremely skeptical of the claim that Russia hacked the election, especially since the claim is coming from the United States, a country which has repeatedly interfered in other countries' elections for decades. Now, there is no doubt that Steve Bannon was very, very closely allied to Trump and stood by him through thick and thin until he was forced out of the White House. So if there is any kind of wrongdoing on the part of Donald Trump, Steve Bannon would be the man to know about it. But it's very interesting here to see how that he has struck a deal, which means he certainly knows something, and he's willing to admit something that does not go well for Donald Trump in order to protect himself from being put in front of a grand jury. What that is, we don't know, and it's probably going to be a long time before we know. If this investigation into Trump and whether or not Russia was involved in manipulating the results of the election, this is going to be a very, very long investigation, which will probably take a couple years before there's any kind of final statement on behalf of the investigators. But in the meantime, this news that Steve Bannon has struck a deal is certainly one that does not go well for the Trump camp. Thank you for watching. If you like this program, then please head over to my Patreon page and set up a monthly donation. It's your donations that keep this program running. Also, if you would like, please rate, comment, subscribe, and share in various social media.